You remember that guy I was talking about? We got the email from?
No, I don't remember.
Anyway, this guy's the Steve Ramsey lover. I said, hey, you love him, why don't you marry the guy?
Well, you went there.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Jimmy, I thought maybe we could talk about the shed that we built last winter.
Why are we talking about that? Why did you get
No, I
weird?
was just thinking we could talk about the shed. You know, we put a lot of neat features into it. Had a really good time building that.
You been sniffing paint remover, paint thinner again?
We're making a video.
Oh, thanks for telling me.
No problem.
Hey, let's edit out that Steve Ramsey stuff.
Yeah, we definitely.
Okay.
So, Jimmy and I built a shed over the winter. It took a couple of months to do. We kind of did it in our downtime. And
Right.
a lot of neat features on it. It's got a loft. It has solar lighting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of neat features on it. You know, Jimmy, we had so much fun doing that. And
Oh, yeah. A
I
lot
don't
of
know
fun.
about you, but I remember that just like it was yesterday.
Oh, I see what you're doing. This guy's a pro. Look at him.
Good morning. I want to show you my shed today. This is a look at the shed, and it is mostly finished. You can see I've got pretty much everything done. I still need to put a porch on this front part, so that'll be another video, and I hope to make that a progress video, a true project video where you can see the progress of the front porch as I put it on. I'm going to build it out about 4 feet from the front porch and put an overhang on it, and I think it'll look real nice with this shed. So I want to show you today some progress pictures and kind of explain how I put up this shed. I started with an idea that I was going to do a pole barn, kind of like the one that Blazing Nail Gun that Fetty built. I've watched all of his videos. It's a great series if you haven't seen that. What I wound up doing is kind of a combination of a pole barn and a traditional shed. You can see that I put a shingle roof on the shed, and I did cedar siding on the outside. But let me walk you through the steps of how I built the shed and tell you a little bit about how I went through that process.
At this point, we've already laid out where the 4 corner posts will go. So what I did was, for the 2 corners that you see on the right, my house and deck is just out of the picture frame there to the right. I wanted those 2 posts that side to be parallel with my house and my deck. So I measured out from the edge of my deck out into the yard to make sure that it was equal distant to that line between those 2 posts that you see there on the right. At this point, I've already taken some of the string down, but you can see that I've put the stakes in the ground and put the string there as my reference lines for when I'm setting the posts, actually when I'm digging the post holes and when I'm setting the posts into the holes to make sure that I've got those exact. The strings coming off those stakes represent the outside corner of each of the 4 posts on the outside of the shed. We mixed the concrete up as we needed it in a 5-gallon bucket, and see the bags of concrete there on the ground, so we used probably a quarter of a bag at a time and mixed it with some water from the hose in the 5-gallon bucket, and that worked pretty well. We set the post in the ground about 30 inches deep, which I think is fine for the Charlotte area of North Carolina. We don't get a lot of cold weather, and it gives it a good stable foundation. I also like the way that the concrete looks after it came out of the form. It gives it kind of a neat look, and I can raise the level of the footing, the concrete footing, up to a couple inches above the level of the grade of the yard. Here the concrete footings have dried for the 2 posts there on the end, and we've taken the forms off of those footings. At the top of the post that I'm working with there, you can see the notch that I've cut into the top of that 4x4 for the edge banding to sit in. So we did that on two sides of each of the corner posts. So the outside two sides have a spot for the edge banding to sit into, so that the edge banding is going to be flush with the outside of the 4x4s at the corners. Here we are putting the last corner post in place, and I'm taking some last minute measurements to make sure we put the post in the right place in the hole there, making sure that we've got the right distance from each of the other posts. Here we are about to mix up the concrete for the last post. We've still got to put the form in the ground there. After we know where the 4x4 goes, we put the form in the ground and the concrete, and then put the post down into that. And that's my son helping me out there. And
Good looking kid.
A lot of help on this section of the shed build. Here's my son mixing up the concrete for the last post hole. We're just using a section of PVC pipe that we cut, or it was a scrap that we used to stir the concrete.
Strong as an ox, dude. Carried a lot of 4x4s and concrete that day, as I remember.
Here I am cutting the form for the last post hole and just using a Sawzall to go ahead and cut that to the length that I need for that hole. It's my son stirring the concrete and getting it ready to put in the hole, and I'm just about ready to put the form into that final hole. Here it looks like I'm thinking about throwing that form up over the top of that pole. I'm not sure whether that's what I did or common sense prevailed and I picked the post up and put the form into the hole and then
I
put the post
seriously
back.
doubt it. Oh, I remember what happened.
And here it looks like common sense in fact did not prevail.
Ta-da!
Stepping on a step stool to put that form over the top of the last post. You can see the edge banding is in place now on three sides, sitting in the notches that we put at the top of the 4x4s, and we're getting ready to go ahead and put up the edge band there on the final side. Here we are climbing up on the ladder and the step stool to put the last edge band in place. I would recommend having two ladders of the appropriate size rather than using a step stool. I think the legs on the step stool kind of sunk into the ground.
Yeah, that step stool didn't
there.
look too safe.
We got it done, but I would recommend having at least two ladders. Here we are with the last edge band in place, and I'm fastening the last edge band to the corner 4x4.
Hey, look, your kid's still on the step stool over
Here
there.
we are getting ready to put the first board of the bottom of the shed in place. It would be the bottom edge banding, if you will, or ledger boards on the outside. So we didn't have any notches in the 4x4s, so we connected those to the outside. So all of the bottom ledger boards or banding that goes around the outside is on the outside of those 4x4s.
If you don't need me, I'm gonna go grab some coffee. Be back in a couple hours.
And here we've got two of the
Hi.
ledger boards in place. Here we are checking the level on the ledger board that faces the house before we connect it to the pole that I'm standing by there. Because my yard has some slope, it kind of slopes out and away down there toward the wood line, and it also has, as you're standing at my house looking at the shed, it's got kind of a right to left bit of slope there also, so it slopes kind of toward that back left corner. So we had to take that into consideration in the height of the posts to make sure that they were all at the right height, and when we're leveling up the ledger boards there, some of the corners of the ledger board, of course, was higher off the grade, off the ground, than it was on other sides. And here the edge bands, the ledger boards on the bottom are all in place. and also the joists are in place. We used metal joist hanger brackets there, and we actually set the level of the floor joist there down 3/4 inch from the top of the ledger board so that we could set our floorboards, the plywood that we're going to use for the floor, in, and it would be level with the top of the ledger boards on the outside. And here you can see what I mentioned, that the floor joists are set down 3/4 of an inch from the ledger boards on the outside. A couple of the panels, the 4x8 sheets, are installed here for the floor, and we're using pressure treated wood there. All of the wood that you see there so far is pressure treated. And here we are getting ready to mark that plywood panel for the floor. We're marking it in place to fit into the slot there between the ledger boards. And here we are standing on the floor with all of the floorboards and the floor completed. We decided to go ahead and add some posts in the center there of the long sides of the shed. I was concerned that maybe the posts on the corners wouldn't be enough support to support the weight of the shed, since it was going to be pretty tall, had a shingle roof, and also had a loft. So we added those after the fact. It was a little tough to get those in the ground underneath the edge of the shed there, and even after we got those in, I'm not so sure that they really bear a whole lot of the weight of the shed. They are flush to that ledger board there, so hopefully that will help hold some of the weight if any of the sides do start to sink or give under the weight. So there's one of those on each side. Here we are setting the first end truss in place, and you see at this time we did go ahead and bring out the other ladder, so we do have 2 ladders there, and you can see I've attached some scab boards to the outside of the shed so that when we get that end truss in place, it can just rest up against those boards, and then we can fasten it in place. You also see that I've already got the window, the framing in place to set the window in when the shed's done. You can see I've got the top point of the truss sandwiched in between some triangular pieces of plywood that we cut. So we kept that going all the way back, so each of the trusses has that sandwiched piece of plywood on each side from front to back. Here we are getting ready to set the second truss in place, and setting these trusses up is definitely a 2-man job, and luckily I had my son helping me there. So we started by taking one leg of the truss and pulling it underneath the top there, and had to kind of tilt the top point sideways just a bit to get it underneath there. But once we had that, and the arm of it was up over the top band on the other side, then I grabbed the other leg of the truss and went up the other ladder, and then lifted it over the band there on the left in the foreground, and then we secured it in place. At this point we already had all the metal brackets in place to connect to the trusses, so we had the spacing for those and already had those secured to the top bands. Now all the trusses are in place, and you can see on that truss on the end that I've cut some notches in it to set some purlins in place. So 2 on each side. There's going to be an overhang on that end and an overhang on the back end. The overhang on the front of the shed here is a little bit more, I think it was 16 inches. So we wanted to put those purlins in place, and we've got the purlins setting in a notch in that front truss, and then we've got them fastened to the second truss there, so they provide good support for the overhang. Here we are attaching some of the other trusses, and this is a high roof line We're pretty high up on those ladders right now, especially my son there on the other side, and when it came to doing some of the roof work, which I'll cover in some of the other subsequent videos in this series, we were pretty high up there. So always take caution and be careful and make sure you're working with a partner when you're up high like that, and you've taken all the safety precautions that you need to take to make sure you're safe.